Today we see ice and fire coexisting within feet of each other in the bizarre Lassen Volcanic National Park. Even after all this time, America keeps throwing new landscapes at us. Avoiding the 108-degree temperatures that the guy at the Riverside Inn in Colusa, California warned us about seemed like a good idea to me. Luckily, we're heading north into the mountains today. We didn't get that far at first, a few feet behind the motel, for a quick visit to 5th Street River Park to see the Sacramento River. It's the largest river in California, starting up by Mount Shasta in the Cascades and emptying into San Francisco Bay. Here in Colusa, it's a calm and friendly little waterway. The agricultural flatlands around Colusa soon gave way to cooler, winding mountain roads, thick with fir trees. This is the far southern part of the Cascades, which stretch all the way up into Canada. I didn't know quite what was ahead on this road. I'm sure this helpful sign will tell us. Alright, well, I guess we'll find out when we get there. Where we're actually going is Lassen Volcanic National Park. As we got closer and could see it ahead, it looked like we were approaching a cold, rugged world of ice and snow. It turned out that's true, but it's quite the opposite too. Lassen Volcanic National Park is the perfect metaphor for today. Hot and cold coexisting side by side, quite literally. I gotta confess, this is a park that I'd never even heard of before this trip, but it's one that made a lasting impression, as we too kept experiencing temperature extremes today. The visitor center is called Kohm Yah-Mah-Nee, which is the native Maidu name for Lassen Peak, arguably the park's main feature. They had the nerve to sell us 6 different tokens, but we had the nerve to give them the $6. How do you not buy a token called Bumpus Hell? The park brochure has a great tone to its writing, descriptive but economical, almost worthy of writer Edward Abbey, whom the brochure quotes. As it says, Lassen Volcanic is intrinsically untamable. The large, roughly rectangular park holds a bizarre landscape that introduces a new element to the road trip: ongoing volcanic activity. There are 4 types of volcanoes in the world, and this park is a rare instance of all 4 being in one area. Rain and snow fall generously here, seeping into the ground and then rising back out due to the magma in a half-melted rock a few miles below the surface. It's an endless, phantasmagorical geothermal process caused by violent tectonic plate activity. Just outside the visitor center, I was thrilled by the huge snowdrifts and took a scenic insulin shot before our picnic. The air was great, cool enough to allow some of the snow to stay, but sunny and nice to be outside in. Like many national parks, one single road goes through from south to north, with the rest wilderness. But the road was closed just beyond the visitor center due to snow when we arrived. So we drove as far in as we could, about 1 mile into the park, and we drove slowly. I was amazed and distracted by the dramatic scenery and the big curvy shapes made by the snow that just didn't want to melt yet. You can still walk on part of the road, so we parked and forged ahead. And in this cool, clear, snowy mountain air, more than a mile above sea level, we started seeing the telltale signs of very hot volcanic activity. Steam rises from the ground, which looks parched and is full of colorful minerals and rivulets of melting snow. Clearly, the high alpine vistas are only half the story here. This is Sulphur Works, where boiling pools of mud burble just feet away from thick patches of snow, and fumaroles obscure the views of tree-covered mountains. A very strange place to find yourself, a land of closely related opposites. Since a 17-mile section of the road was closed, the only way to see the north part of Lassen Volcanic would have been some long detour around small roads way outside the park. So let's do that. Those back roads to the west are lower, so the snow is soon gone. Before we get to the lowest part though, look at this. From here you can make out Mount Shasta to the northwest. That volcano, famous for, among other things, its spiritual significance among New Age adherents, rises 10,000 feet higher than its surrounding area. It's hugely prominent, but actually not really part of this road trip. However, it will be a sort of recurring background character over the next couple of days, so keep it in the back of your mind. The real exciting part of this drive was turning on a tiny little road A6. It leads through lower and lower fields, which are all golden and bright yellow, and strewn with dark chunks of solidified volcanic rock. This isn't part of Lassen Volcanic National Park, but it's part of the story of this area. And I'm not sure, but I believe that the mountain on the left here is Lassen Peak over in the park. I don't know how many people get to see it from this vantage point, but it was pretty weird to be looking up at a huge snowy mountain while outside the car it was 106 degrees. Not that I was in a hurry to escape. I was loving Road A6. Let some other go-getter eat up the miles on the highway. I'm here to enjoy the unusual surroundings at their pace. Our shortcut through hell did finally end, and soon we found ourselves back at Lassen Volcanic National Park, at the northern Manzanita Lake entrance. The line of cars to get in here was actually much longer, but I think that's because locals like to go hang out by Manzanita Lake near the entrance. Can't blame them. There is no visitor center here in the north part of the park. There used to be, and lodging too, but it was all removed when it was realized that the area could be in the path of a ferocious landslide during a future volcanic eruption. But there is still a museum dedicated to the last eruptions in 1914 and 1915. They led to the establishment of the park thanks to technology and media. Photographer Benjamin Franklin Loomis knew an eruption of Lassen Peak was imminent, so he hung around for days with his camera pointed at the mountain and focused. When he saw a huge plume of smoke one morning, he knew it was time and ran to the camera. Loomis managed to get 6 photos of the eruption. His images so impressed the nation that the ensuing attention led to the Lassen area being set aside as a national park. Outside the museum is a seismograph, a reminder that a series of earthquakes precedes a volcanic eruption, and that the volcanoes around here are still active and will erupt again eventually. It's just that nobody knows when. We took a look at the gorgeous Reflection Lake, where ducks enjoy themselves in peace and I became temporarily feral, and then we continued down the road. Here, the highway reaches deeper into the park, with much clearer views of majestic Lassen Peak. We were fascinated by these little red pinecone-looking things we kept seeing and pulled over to take a closer look. These are in fact not pine cones at all, but snow plants. They're parasitic, get nutrients from tree roots, and pop up after the snow melts in spring. And they have no chlorophyll. And they brought some pizzazz to our drive. On the way back out, after a short stop for an atmospheric snack and then some arm stretching exercises with the trees, we got some final insight into this national park at a place with truly great names. These volcanoes are called the Chaos Crags. They formed during an eruption about 1,000 years ago, so about the same time that people were building their cliff dwellings back in Mesa Verde, just to get our temporal bearings. About 300 years ago, a landslide in the Chaos Crags sent debris crashing down. Going 100 miles an hour, the rocks destroyed the forest that was here and dammed a creek, which is what formed Manzanita Lake. The sea of rocks is now called the Chaos Jumbles. And the thought of a replay of all this in the future, here at Chaos Crags and Chaos Jumbles, is why the Park Service decided to discontinue the visitor center and lodge in the area. Our room's in a town north of the national park called Burney, location of the beer company from yesterday. After leaving the park, we again saw Mount Shasta, which, again, really stands out. To be fair though, we were spoiled for striking mountains and hills on this part of the drive through Northern California. Burney was great, small and quiet, and of course in a cool and pretty setting. We found our rustic room at the Green Gables Motel, having survived the cold snow and the boiling ground in a national park that you could really spend weeks hiking and exploring. Hopefully someday. For now, time to rest up because tomorrow the strange world of volcanic activity and temperature extremes gets weirder. On day 75, we find yet another fantastic national monument called Lava Beds, where we experience temperatures from the freezing 30s to the boiling 90s, all within a 5-minute stretch. After that, we enter a new state, Oregon, and get a room in the city of Klamath Falls, conveniently situated next to a pizza place.